Media Lab in cooperation with a designer, and it's a space-saving, convertible, furnished room, which includes a cupboard, a desk, and a bed. And it's based on robot technology, so a lot of small sensors. And there's one key feature.
Hey Alexa, can you ask Lori to make the bed? Okay.
It connects to Alexa, so we can do everything by voice. So we delegate it by voice. We don't have to touch anymore, like surfaces are not touched that much anymore. So, and I can do parties in the evening. I can go sleeping, drinking a wine, so there's a multi-purpose functionality of our rooms, which is increasingly important when we see at the urbanization. So space is becoming more rare, and we have to use the space as much as possible. And next to this, our rents, the prices for rents are increasing a lot. So we do have to have like smaller spaces, but we want to still have all the functionalities. And this is kind of the technology, but what it comes to what happens with our needs. So we are used that everything is done by voice. We just ask Alexa, can you please do my bed? Okay, so it happens on demand. And this on demand we call voicification. So the new medium of like our information, how we transform and how we communicate is the voice. And when we see how voice assistants are used, which are based on artificial intelligence, we see that like in the younger generations, so our future customers, it's like pretty present already. Whereas when we see like the older generations, they are not used to voice assistants right now. But in the trend research, we think that some trends are going to swap over from the younger generations to the older ones. And this is exactly what happens right now with voicification, because there's a nice quote which says, convenience is the goal. So everyone thinks, okay, voicification, it's so convenient for me just to ask something and it will done immediately on demand. And when we have another look on the world, how it is distributed on the world, we can see that China and India do have a lot more voice assistants than, for example, Canada and Germany. And there's as well this fact of the data, the fear of data, etc. But this on demand is not only like happening in our everyday life, like in actions, it also takes place into our living conditions. So we start living on demand on a flexible basis. And this is what like the Cabin Spacey, a startup from Berlin, did. They introduced like tiny houses, which are just built like really quickly, and I can put them everywhere on demand. And when I rent this kind of house, I'm not only renting a living space, I rent a whole living experience. So it's becoming living as a service. So, because what do I rent as well? I rent a cleaning service, a laundry service, and sometimes guiding tours or something like this. And this is only possible because we do not have that many families anymore. Because like with families, I can't be that flexible. So I would like to raise every fist in this room to raise their hand. So starting in the front, raise their hands, and then every fist just raise the hand, please. Every fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You. Yeah. And then every fist just raise the hand, please.
Keep it up.
Yeah, keep it up. Like, just keep it up. It's difficult. It's still early though. Yes. Is it such a problem? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And now I guess when you have a look around, this is exactly what represents the future and the nowadays design of our households. So every 5th person, or 1 out of 5 in Germany, is living in a single household. Like even, you can put it down. Thank you. So even like either these are like old people and they're gonna live alone for a longer time, since there are a lot of robots will do support them in their everyday life, and they get healthier, so they don't have to have that many supports. But on the other hand, like the younger people are also living in a single kind of household because they want to be more flexible, which is like observable in the future generation. And this phenomena is used by, for example, Procter & Gamble to launch new products, such as a pretty simple innovation, a toilet paper roll. But this toilet paper roll is designed for single households. So it has like half of the storage, so it's addressed the urbanization with the scarce space. And on the other side, it keeps like 3 months longer than a normal toilet paper roll. So I don't have to go shopping that often. And all these people are living in all of these out of 5 are probably living in one city, since in 2015 predictions are saying that in Germany at least 80% of the population will live in urban areas. In the whole world, the average will be around like 70%. And for example, this is Tokyo, and there are living 37 million people in one city, and this is slightly more than in whole Canada. But, sorry. But there's not only the problem of living in those cities, there's also the problem, how do I get to work in the morning without all the traffic, because it's gonna be really crowded. So what they thought is, okay, the city is built up in the high. As you can see, the buildings are getting higher and higher. So why don't we do the mobility in the high? So this is what Airbus did. They introduced an autonomous driving flying taxi, for example. And I read that like 2 months ago there was like a test flight in Stuttgart for one autonomous flying taxi. But on the other side, when I don't want to go by a drone or by a flying taxi, I can use like e-pallet.
On-demand retail experience.
This is kind of from Uber and Pizza Hut and Toyota, and it's supposed to launch at the Olympic Games in 2020 in Tokyo. So we have a modular solution. In the morning it's a ride sharing, and then it's a hospital shuttle. So in the afternoon, it may be my lunch delivery and ride sharing at the same time, so multifunctional. And for example, it can also be a restaurant. And what's interesting is here that, of course, a ride sharing has like other hygiene standards than a restaurant. So autonomous manufacturers are thinking about self-cleaning materials inside those modular cars, because it has to be cleaned really fast, and there has to be a high hygiene standard, especially for like restaurants and food delivery services. So, but now we are at work, and probably we've done already yoga in those modular cars which drive autonomously, or we did other things like we were in the phone, because now we are allowed to be on the phone because we don't have to drive anymore. And then we are at work, but this work doesn't look like it looks today, because like here, for example, there's a working space in a train station, or this one is like kind of familiar to what you just mentioned, WeWork. It's a co-working space where and this co-working space is special because I can bring my kids with me, and there is a school and a kindergarten, so there are a lot of people in one same place with a lot of interaction and a lot of touching surfaces. And this becomes an increasingly important issue because of contamination with bacteria and germs. So there are kind of companies which address those problems. With, for example, the Hubble Lighting Company from the USA, they introduced a light disinfection which is continuously like just disinfecting any room. So just normal light with a narrowband of 405 nanometers, and then it disinfects our surrounding and our surfaces. But this is not the only thing, because it's not only the office works which becomes more flexible and more interaction. So also like the manufacturing processes are becoming even more flexible, and they need to be cleanest on demand, especially when we see all the sensors and the miniaturization we're going through nowadays. So this is what Fraunhofer addressed. They introduced the tent, which is popped up pretty easily, and it's a clean room on demand. So there's no cross-contamination during production processes, for example, like medical technology or like food industry. So it doesn't matter where we are working on that day, everybody has to go for lunch. And when we're gonna go for lunch now, we don't eat anything. We are about that we eat clean food. What is clean food? For example, it's food which has a low carbon footprint.
So there's something fundamental.
It's also food which is regional.
The food production closer to the people.
And this becomes more important in urban areas,
That deploys highly efficient vertical indoor.
like indoor farming, because we want to have regional food in an urban city, so we're going to take the plant into the city.
It would be when it's being imported into Europe. So what goes on in each farm is that we can control the climate conditions really from light and temperatures or which fertilizers together. So all that symphony together allows us to grow plants really under ideal conditions. We're even collecting over 50,000 data points in order to optimize.
And what we also can see in this trend is that it's not only the clean food, the food which is free from sustainable destroyment or like from damaging water, it's also our inner heart, our ethical consumption which comes into focus. So we are about to eat on the one hand healthy, but on the other hand it has to be good for our surroundings, especially in frame of the climate change. So for example, here we see some meat, which is actually no meat. I don't know whether you've heard about Beyond Burgers, which has like an increased success in the USA. And this is not the only thing what happens. We also want to do it like fast and flexible with our food in the lunch break. What we have in the morning and in the living areas and in the autonomous, in the mobility areas, we also have it in our food area. So when I go for lunch, I want to have it fast and just the thing I want at that moment. So this is what Amazon Go addresses. I check in with my mobile phone. So there is no interaction with other people anymore, which means less contamination possibilities, and kind of hands-off society, we call it. And it shows that the connectivity is increasing all the time. And you can imagine what kind of data is generated by using those technologies. And this is only possible, these fast top-up shopping, why is this possible? Why don't we do this grocery shoppings every Saturday, like 2 hours, queuing into caches? It's possible because at home we do have smart devices